Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
You don't like crazy music, you don't like rockin' bands, you just want to go to a movie show and sit there holding hands. You're so square, baby, I don't care.
Everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. This is Jackie Bertoni, that's me, and that's Del Dan Fiorentino.
Right, good.
Fiorentino, thank you very much. And this is Intertalk Radio Network. Guys, this is Facebook Live, so everybody welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a hot day here in San Diego at the Intertalk Studios, and it is, what is today? Today's the 25th October. Yep. This is going by, and I want to say a special condolences to the Domino family.
Yes.
We lost another legend today, Fats Domino. I don't know how old he was.
89.
So he was 89. Robert Guillaume was 89 years old. Mm-hmm. So, but that said, guys, it's going to go out to you. So God bless you, brother. Thank you for the music. So with that said, it's nice to turn the tables on this gentleman. I did an interview with him actually 2 years ago.
That's right. Yep.
The oral history for NAMM. Daniel was actually introduced to me from a good friend of mine, Bill Kirkpatrick,
right,
at NAMM 2015.
Lovingly known as
Yes,
Mr. Bill.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And Dan had walked up to me. We were out front of the Marriott, and I've told the story before, but he was introduced by Bill. But Bill had explained to him that the reason why I was on the scooter is because I have MS, and my right leg is a little bit weaker, so anything with NAMM, I guess everybody would pay big money just to have a scooter to deal with that. And so when he asked me to, if I would be interested in doing an interview at my home studio, I jumped at it immediately to be part of the NAMM family. Unfortunately, I missed NAMM last year because of my spinal surgery, and would have been number 28. So this year will be number 28.
Cool.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with NAMM, let me explain. It's National Association of Music Merchants. It's the everything you wanted to know about music, but we're afraid to ask. Actually, it's easier to get into Fort Knox than it is to get into NAMM, because I can't tell you, and I'll be the first one to admit, Daniel, I can't tell you how many people went as Jackie and Caprice Bertoni over the years before, you had to sit there and get a urine sample if you're going in, and so on and so forth. NAMM is amazing. It is an adult playground. Every square inch of the Anaheim Convention Center, including suites, including outdoors, is filled, and it's amazing. It's 10 to 6's business. Being an endorser with 3 of the majors, I have to do my fiduciary duty. I have to show up, but the fun starts at after 6. And so with that said, and what we're doing here today is we're here to promote all about the music history of NAMM. And Dan is the prominent music historian for NAMM. So with that said, everybody, with open arms and open ears, Mr. Dan Del Fiorentino.
Thank you.
Say hi to everybody, Daniel.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. This is awesome to be here. Jackie is a good friend of mine, so it's an honor to hang out with you. And
yeah, man.
Good to see you. It's been a couple of months, so I'm glad to see your sparkling eyes again. So,
and I'm proud to say that we're combined. We're about 280 pounds less than we were when we got together.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yes.
For God bless you, man. You look great. If I wasn't married, my friend, you'd be the one. Let me just
well,
tell
I
you.
was thinking about sitting on your lap a little bit later on.
That's
so,
reserved for Tino.
Yes,
and
okay.
And Dan's beautiful wife is over here in the corner. My wife is suffering from allergies today, so she's sequestered herself with Tino. So let's talk about our duties, Intertalk Radio, Jackie's Groove, and our association with NAMM. Share with the listeners.
Well, I'm just thrilled to talk a little bit about the new podcast that we started in August. That's based on the oral history program at NAMM. So because we have these amazing interviews that go back to the first one that was recorded in the year 2000, we've interviewed about 3,400 people. And this is everybody in the music industry, from Armand Zildjian and Bob Moog and Les Paul, down to the guys who started Guitar Center, Sam Ash's family, the mom and pop music store that you went to as a kid around the corner, composers, music publishers, music educators. We try to cover the whole gamut. And because of that, and because we've been so strongly supported by the NAMM board and the NAMM membership, we've been able to just run as fast as we can. So the original goal, Jackie, I wanted to share with you in 2000 was to get 100 interviews in 10 years. But by the 10-year mark, I was already at 1,100. So we've been running. Well, you know what it tells me? I mean, okay, a little bit of passion from my end, but also the industry is, as you well know, so full of passionate people who love what they do that at the end of the interview, oftentimes they'll say, oh, I get it now. This is what you want. Well, if you're going to interview me, you got to interview Bob and Jim and Sally. And so my list just keeps going and going. And it's been a thrill, an absolute thrill to document this history. But now we got to the point where we've got such a resource. We have a little clip like we do with yours up on the NAMM website. It's what I call a web clip. It's 2 to 5 minutes long and a little bio. And it keyword tags that link you to other people with the same subjects. Like you have percussion. You can click on that and get a list of all the people who talk about percussion during their interview. But we wanted to show the depth of the collection. We wanted to show 5 or 6 people talking about the same thing. So the podcast was the perfect vehicle for that. So in August we launched. The first 2 were based on Sun Records in Memphis. Since I interviewed, I think, 8 people who actually played there and worked there, including Scotty Moore and Carl Mann and people like that. We got their perspective on that and played those clips, and I just loved it. It's great.
It's so cool too for those out there in Facebook land and also on my page and your page and then Intertalk. There's a little graphic of Dan with his 2 associates in there, right. So that is the broadcast, if you will. I always was against the word podcast. And over the last, especially 2 years ago, we were always saying, no, this is a network. But now that our numbers are so strong and that we are in that vein of, and we're bragging, yes, I'm bragging, of the Alec Baldwins and the Joe Rogans and so on and so forth, we knew Jackie's Groove would be successful. But at what degree and how fast, we're just blessed by that. And the funny thing about this, listeners, is that when I got a hold of Dan, I said, I really want you to be part of my show. And his humble response is, what the hell am I going to do on your show? And and when you're talking about a man that's a virtual library of musical history. In fact, I think it was last month and a half ago, here at Humphreys, we were invited by a dear friend of mine, Kenny G, and some guy by the name of George Benson. They were doing their Breezin' and something tour. So afterwards, we were all hanging out, and George wanted to meet me. I wanted to meet George because all of our friends are in the band. And I said, you and I have something in common, meaning George and I. And he goes, what is that? And I said, we both did a beautiful interview with Dan Fiorentino from NAMM and Oral History. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah, we did
a big impact on it.
And I said, well, you did yours, I did mine, and then B.B. King did the one after that before we lost him. I said, so to me to be in that area, but it's funny when I made that announcement to him, his son and Michael O'Neill, his guitarist, said at this point of the night he's really, really tired. So even if I was to say something that he would know, he wouldn't recognize it. So and also too, with that interview that Dan did with me, you can go to Jackie Bertone, that's BERTONE.com. It's going to be on the right side. Click on the NAMM logo and take a look at this. We did a 3.5-hour interview in which we condensed it all into about a good 20 minutes. And so, it's all about the fact is that, I don't hide from having MS. The fact of the matter is it was a card I was dealt with. And if I can make one person smile, one person feel better about themselves, let you know that how music has brought me through this and how that has brought me through music, it's a win-win situation. And so with that said, for those who ever go out on the 5 freeway and you go out to the flower fields, when you look up and you see that monstrosity on top of that, that is NAMM. And actually, I've been wanting to do an interview at NAMM, but for some reason, Daniel doesn't want me around the property, so we'll figure that out also.
We got to get that restraining order off, but after that, you're certainly welcome. Yeah.
And so, are we? Again, I'm always kept in the background. Paul never tells me anything. Fiorentino never tells me anything. Maybe we just don't know right now where exactly if we're going to be. Paul, are we going to be on the floor that you know of in NAMM? Are we? Do we have a set room that we're going to be doing?
We're still trying to iron that out.
Okay, well, we better hurry up. We've got, because we're at the last week of January.
Right.
It's going to be, actually, we always say it's 4 days, but We have the day before, which is media, on Wednesday, and then Sunday. I think now Sunday is open to the public. They were last year.
No.
Or was that summer now? I
that
think
was
it was
summer.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a one-time. We've been trying to figure out how to fulfill the request of people that want to have access to the NAMM show but aren't trade members.
Right.
And because we have 106,000 people who are trade and do qualify to come, that's about the maximum that we can have. So opening it to the public doesn't look like an option at this point.
I love the whole vibe, the John Lennon bus that was always kind of in the front part of the venue, if you will, of the convention center.
Right.
I think they've moved it now, and when the last time I saw it was in the middle of all the food. The food trucks are. Guys, let me just tell you, trying to tell you and explain what NAMM is like, telling somebody what peanut butter, steak tastes like if they've been eating peanut butter. It is like an adult Disneyland. You walk in, and your eyes blow up and it's not just saxophones, just percussion, just drums. You have a NAMM application. By the way, go on to Google and go on to iTunes and download a free and actually easy to use NAMM application. It will update daily as it goes along. You can put your own shows, concerts you want to go to, there's a reminder and so on, and you can actually find yourself if you're lost in NAMM. And I love it because, Dan, you'll agree with me, there's some people that stopped progressing in the 70s. There's still the guys walking around with the glam hairdo. There's still the girls walking around with the, what's the term I use? What is the pants the girls used to wear back in the day? Just that stretchy pants, like anything that had to do with bolas and so on. It's a virtual potpourri. And also, too, just so you know there, not to add to the confusion, but after 6 o'clock, you or the general public are allowed onto the properties if you want to come down to sit there and watch people. It is amazing because it is like a moving Grammys. With that it said. So with the NAMM Foundation, the music history itself, where are you trying, when you're bringing it to the people, what do you want the people to take out of that?
Well, the trade association goes back to 1901. We had our first trade show in 1902 in Baltimore. And for many years, it had a lot to do with the piano industry. That was sort of where we started. NAMM was very active in Washington back in the 20s when we had all kinds of problems like stencil pianos, if you remember that whole mess. That was less scrupulous manufacturers coming up with pianos that would have names similar to legit, like Steinway and Baldwin. And NAMM was able to effectively get rid of those through Congress and creating laws that basically got rid of those practices and strengthened the music industry. And at that point, we expanded. We started covering more instruments. We expanded again to have a trade show that was in the convention center in Chicago. Many people might remember McCormick Place.
Sure, of course.
And growing alongside that was the NAMM Foundation, the roots of NAMM Foundation, which started off as the American Music Conference, which had a lot to do with music education. How can we create more music makers? Because basically the business model for NAMM is a circle of benefits. If we can get more people to play instruments, they're going to go to a music store. They're going to have a demand on the manufacturer. That manufacturer is going to need to show their wares at a place called the NAMM show, and that's where the retailers go to pick up those instruments. So that circle really begins with making more music makers, and NAMM has been about that since 1901. And that's part of the John Lennon bus. That's part of all of the initiatives that NAMM has and music education programs that we have. Is a huge part of the NAMM show, as you well know. The sessions are also part of growing the industry. We have NAMM U at the Idea Center. Those programs are for retailers, by retailers, for manufacturers, by manufacturers, for, in the case of the tech tracks, engineers, by engineers. And it's geared towards growing those businesses. How can we strengthen our industry, and how can we perpetuate this concept that we all have and know and love, which is music makes you better, makes you happier, makes you smarter, makes you, we fill in the blank, right?
It calms the savage beast, as they say. And I want to throw something to you. Through all my interviews I've had in the last 2 years, which I'll be name dropping Michael McDonald, Al Di Meola, the late, great Al Jarreau. We all talked about NAMM, and NAMM has been in every one of my conversations, every one of my interviews. Coming up will be Steve Lukather coming up in Thanksgiving time. We're going to be looking at a situation. Is that 5 minutes, or is that that's you're waving to me? And you
have another fan.
Exactly, please. Well, I'm glad he used all 5 fingers. He usually only uses one. And so with that said, I want to talk more into that, because they come to me during the interview, and they're saying, well, how much pull does NAMM have? Meaning, the fact is, how will NAMM utilize us, the names in the industry, the Lucathers, the Aldemiolas? How can we, along with your name, compile a situation where we can stick our wingtip shoe up the boot of the asses of the government?
Well, NAMM's initiatives are all on our website. We'd love to get all the support we can. We have a lot of folks who help us with, like, the fly-ins to Washington, D.C. This is where our members have a one-on-one opportunity to talk to their representatives and to make some changes, shake some boots, and hopefully get that music education in front of the people who are making those decisions. And celebrities certainly help, but I think the common person does too. Our NAMM membership, we're signing those petitions. Just being on top of those initiatives and making a difference, having your voice being heard, is very important to all of us. And so the NAMM Foundation welcomes anybody who's willing to help us.
And I want to find out also too, the people that are in charge of our government, do they get it? Or are they looking at us like, oh, here are these long hairs, here are the people itself, the radicals, and so on and so forth? Are they in a position to really understand? Do they really want to help?
I think we have way more supporters than we ever have, and I think a lot of that has to do with the work that is being done at NAMM, the fly-ins, the initiatives, the government relations. But it can always be better, right? I mean, it can always be better. And so I think we tend to bring a few more people every time we go, but that number needs to continue, and it needs to be just more than a one-time thing. It needs to be in the forethought of people when we're making decisions about everything.
Repetitive is good.
It's a good thing.
It's that push. And I want to talk more about the situation with the History Museum at NAMM itself. I want to let the public know if they're allowed to go into that. So with that said, we're going to step out. You see how fast this goes. Yeah. We're stepping out of segment number 1 into segment number 2. I'm Jackie Bertoni. The network is called Intertalk Radio, your connection to all things music. And Jackie's Groove is just welcomed. And so proud to bring Dan from the damn NAMM
there I am.
To this. So there's the bumper music, guys. We'll be back on segment number 2. Don't go anywhere. Grab yourself a beverage. We'll be right back after a short message and these short words. Yes, my brother.
Nice. Good.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Todd Zuckerman from the rock band Styx, and you're listening to my pal Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove. Groove on, motherfuckers.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
I love it, man.
You know what that is.
Sanford and Son,
right,
baby, please.
Right.
Hey, guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. You know what? I kind of got out of my wheelhouse. We talked about the aesthetics of what we're doing here with NAMM, and we're going to intertwine that during the interview. I'm going to get back to the way I do interviews. And it's all about Dan, and Dan Del Fiorentino from NAMM. So, Dan, you'll say hi to the listeners again.
Hey.
So, Dan, let me ask you this question. Let's go back to the music. I mean, we all know every time my wife and I are driving down the freeway, we see a truck that's got immense, stuff that's built up. We do the one, we know right away, and it's and that. So, what made you pull that song out? What's the genesis of that for you?
Well, my wife and I, Suzanne is here in the studio, which is wonderful. We just fell in love with that theme song because it was written by Quincy Jones.
Of course.
1972 to 77, that show ran on TV. Red Fox is the junk man. But what was great is completely by surprise and accident, one day Suzanne and I were in Simi Valley doing some interviews, and I wanted to interview this guy who had been a studio musician for many years, Tommy Morgan.
Of course.
Played on everything. In fact, what originally got my attention is we're also big fans of The Twilight Zone, and he had written many episodes, the music for many episodes, and played harmonica on many of them. So we were just asking him different questions, and it was amazing. Do you remember City Slickers, where Billy Crystal is having a hard time? He's scared of Curly, right? And he's playing like nervously. Well, that's actually Tommy playing. And he's like this guy who can play classical music on the harmonica. He's dumbing it down so that he can play for Billy Crystal. He plays the harmonica on that song, Sanford and Son theme song. And that is such a groove, and it's so cool. It's to think, this is the same guy who was Billy Crystal, who was on The Twilight Zone. I mean, amazing career.
And that's the cool thing about the business. It's, taking the listeners behind the velvet rope, backstage and so on. To this day, there's things I get more excited when I go to Paramount, or if I'm going to Sony and so on, not to meet the stars or be on the sets of the said series, but just to know that this is what's happening. This is how it's put together. This is the AD. This is the AP. This is what makes everything available. It's what it finally, the work that it's involved to get it to the screen for us, the layman's, to watch that. But I want to ask you about this itself, because I want to find out what drove you to NAMM. But we have to start out to know where music is going. We have to know where it began. So with that said, where were you born and where were you raised? And God knows you never grew up.
No.
But give me the.
And I never will.
Yeah, never. God bless you. But where'd you grow up? What was coming through the speakers of your family's household? What were you forced to listen to, or what did you love to listen to?
Well, I was born in Bloomington, Minnesota, and my mom, as I like to say, played piano and organ for every wake and wedding, and we were in church probably 4 or 5 times every week. So I grew up very much around hymnals and traditional music, church music. And in fact, I don't remember hearing too many popular tunes until I was about 10 or so. And then I was greatly influenced, and it's a very interesting story because I remember exactly where I was on August 16th, 1977, when Elvis Presley died. I was in the kitchen with my mom. I was 10 years old, and I was helping her make a salad. And she was cutting the tomatoes with a sharper knife than I was allowed to use.
Right.
And when she heard the news on her little soap opera black and white set there in the kitchen, she grabbed her arms up to her face, like, shocked like that. And I had thought she cut herself with the knife, because she still had the knife in her hand. But she was shocked by the news that this person that she grew up listening to had died. And I didn't know anything about him, but I was influenced by her response. Wow. I saw my mom move to tears about this,
and it's
and
weird.
I investigated.
And it's weird because I was never a big Elvis fan. My mom was, and my mom was in the living room, the den in our home in Whittier, ironing, and we were getting ready to. 2 days later, we were getting ready to go to Hawaii. So my mom was putting all the clothes together and so on and so forth. And then, of course, when it came on the screen, right away she stopped. I remember the iron went on the side. I saw this team coming out of it. I mean, it's very how vivid it was at that time. My cousin, Steve Barilli, he actually was responsible. He did a lot of album covers for Elvis's career. And in his home in the Bronx, he has what is called the Black and Blue Room. When you go down in the basement, not only is there an amazing sound, but there's Elvis memorabilia everywhere and so on. And it's funny that you mentioned Elvis, because the majority of people that I interview, they revert back to the day they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
And so, this was the situation where, again, I never got Elvis until a later age. I mean, the man had an amazing voice. I never really, don't hate me for this, I was never a really big Beatles fan. But individually, as artists, I was huge fans of them together.
Right.
If that makes any sense, And currently, we talked about Steve Lukather on the break. He's out with Ringo right now.
Right.
And so Ringo's doing his thing. So, that is the beauty of that growing up. So you said that you really didn't have that much traditional music growing up, other than hymns and stuff of the such. Were your parents standoffish from rock and roll music?
No, not really. It was just something that wasn't played necessarily in the house. But I'll tell you, when I first heard Elvis, and being influenced by that experience, I investigated, and a few years later, actually about a year and a half later, I got to hang out with my uncle, my favorite uncle, Uncle Marv Cooper, up in Redwood City, California, and he had a great collection of 45s, Elvis, Buddy Holly, the Beach Boys, all that stuff. And I started listening to these records, and I started hearing things that...
Like?
Like Scotty Moore on Elvis records. And nowhere is his name ever listed on any of those 45s or records. The liner notes all talk about Elvis's hair and how good he looked and, that kind of thing, but nothing about who the sidemen were. And that, even as a preteen, I was fixated by that. So I remember I walked down to a thing called the library in Redwood City, California, and went to the reference desk, and I plopped the 45 of my uncle's on her desk, the reference librarian, and I said, "Who is playing the guitar on this? How do I find this out?" And she's like, "I don't have any idea, but let's look into books." And finally she found an article that said, these are the guys that played with Elvis, Scotty Moore on guitar. And that's the first time I heard his name. And can you believe, I get chills thinking about, thanks to NAMM, my first NAMM show in Nashville, I got to meet him. Second year there in 2001, I got to interview him, and we became good friends. He called me several times, I'd call him. And one of the things that I learned from him is that not everything was well documented. Even though we hear a lot of stories, not every little detail. So the music bump at the beginning of your show here that you were kind enough to play was "You're So Square, Baby, I Don't Care." There's a great story behind that, because Bill Black was the stand-up bass player for Elvis when they first started, and he was given this precision bass by Fender and said, "Okay, here, thump on this. Here's the chord progression we want." Ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-dum. And he couldn't get it. His thumbs weren't working. He's so used to
They were working
slapping.
this way, but not this way.
He wasn't getting into the P bass. So he's like, "Let me get a cigarette break, and I'll figure it out." Well, meanwhile, Elvis picks it up, and he starts thumbing on it. And so one of the first questions I asked Scotty was, "Can you confirm, was that Elvis on there?" And it wasn't really well documented that Elvis was playing the bass on that particular tune, but Scotty confirmed, yes, in fact, he was. And fast forward a couple of years later, I saw it in a book that was written. Now, I'm not saying I was the one that necessarily brought it out, but that was the knowledge that I'm so glad that we have documented now. And little things like that, I think, go a long way to inspiring people to say, well, heck, the singer picked up the bass and kicked butt on that little tune. Hey, maybe I can do that. You know, accessibility and just the relatability. If you like that song and you want to hear a little bit more, maybe that's going to bring you into music more than you were before. And documenting that is an absolute thrill for me.
And see, and you brought that up because I was corrected by the CEO of our corporation and a gentleman by the name of Cedric. And I have to apologize to the millennials out there. What I mean by apologizing is that me as an old man, and me as a musician, I've always fought for case in point. Let's back it up for a second. When you go to a motion picture and that screen rolls, the last thing you see are the musicians. When you watch the Grammys or the Academy Awards, the last thing you see are the musicians. If it wasn't for the musicians, you wouldn't have that vibe. You wouldn't have those stellar orchestrated breaks, the incidental music, the cues, and so on. And so now the Motion Picture Academy is now listing each individual musician that is featured on the soundtrack, if you will. So what I said to the millennials, I said, I kind of used the term that you're not used to paying for music, and they're not. You know, I didn't mean to sound derogatory when I said that, but every one of the people in our industry that are long in the tooth, we always revert back to, in kids, it's called Record Release Tuesday. It's something that is the most amazing thing, and these things called record stores, Tower Records, Amoeba Music, Virgin, and so on, where you're able to go through and rifle through the bins. And if it was this album that I was on, I wanted to see it, or I would take an actual photograph with a thing called a camera, not a camera phone. And now Record Release Friday is out, but it's digitally downloaded. And everybody I've spoken to that are world famous, even people who are not, they're emerging artists. The idea, what you just said a little while ago, was called liner notes. Liner notes is simple. It's a booklet that gives and pays homage to everybody, not just the musicians. But I can't tell you how many times I've opened a liner note up and I'm listening to the music in my headphones. Wow, I didn't know that Bill played bass. I didn't know that John. I didn't know that Jackie, and so on. Oh, I didn't know that it was done at the studio. I didn't know that person was responsible for the album artwork, and so on. Now I understand there's a website, Google it, that actually gives you liner notes that are actually documented. And a lot of new artists, including a lot of the old artists, now are giving you digital downloads of liner notes on iTunes, Amazon, and so on. And that's the way it should be. It's not to know where music is going, it's knowing where it came from. My question to you, I'll ask this till the day I can't ask it anymore. Do you understand today's music?
What a great question. Well, of course. I think, my thought is I can get into just about any kind of music as long as somebody's put some passion into it. If I can figure out where they're coming from, oh, okay, I get that. And I can't understand always every aspect of it. A lot of it, street music, for example, you really do need to be in that neighborhood. You really need to walk a mile in that person's shoes to really get those kind of messages. But if I can get into the groove and I can get into what they're trying to accomplish, then I wind up enjoying it. So understanding it, I think, to me means who is the person. Where did it come from? That's why I've always loved songwriters, because if you can understand the songwriter, you can really understand the song probably a lot more. And that to me is a connection I greatly appreciate.
Explain that a little more, because you lost me on that a little bit itself. I mean, if you don't know the songwriter personally, his or her angst that drove her or him to write that song, are you talking about knowing that person on a personal level or knowing their writing instincts?
I think both. I mean, it certainly helps. You don't have to have dinner with them to know them personally, but if you read about them, we could go way back, right? Gershwin, people like that. One of my favorite songwriters was Irving Berlin, and knowing that he was an immigrant from Russia, came to the United States and was so in love with this country that he wrote God Bless America. Here's a Jewish kid who wrote White Christmas, right? A cantor's son who wrote Easter Parade. I mean, you can't really figure out that. That's a totally different thing. You know, it doesn't make sense. And that's what I love about it. You know, he followed his heart. He saw that these were things that he could relate to being in a new country. Mm-hmm. He was proud of it, and he wrote about it. And when he fell in love, and he wrote about it. You know, when there's a famous story about when in 1923 his soon-to-be father-in-law, who was a rich guy, wanted to separate his daughter from this Jewish songwriter and this song plugger, musician. I mean, come on, you're never going to amount to anything. So he put her on a slow boat to Europe, and Irving is standing by the docks and saying, "What do I do? What do I do with just a photograph and wonder who? Let me write that down." And then he wrote another one called Always. I'll be loving you, not for just an hour, not for just a day, not for just a year, but always. Wrote that, gave it to her as an anniversary gift, and she made more money on that than she would have inherited from her father anyway. So that, to me, knowing that love story and then hearing those songs, I think help us figure out where it came from. And then what's great about that is we get to interpret it in our own lives, right? That song can be meaningful to me when my kids were born or when something special happens to me. Those can be memories that propel that song to a completely different thing. And then maybe even like the Beatles song, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Remember when that was slowed down for the musical on TV, Glee? It changed that whole song 100% around.
Yes, I used to watch Glee, guys, so don't...
I know you did. We talked about this.
Absolutely. You know,
that's why I brought it up.
I want to back off because we're getting ready to go right now out of segment number 2 into segment number 3. It's blown by. You guys, we haven't even touched... I just love where we're going on this. It's the idiosyncrasies. It's what drives the music business and what makes us a little bit touched in a good, weird way. You know, there's a reason for, how we can get our expressions out in music and so on, and how music can actually drive us for the greater good. Getting back into protesting. And now we can protest through music, through words. We'll get more into that too. I don't want to get on a political soapbox, but sometimes it's necessary to do so. So with that said, Paul's waving at me in the background. We come back on segment number 3. I want to get more into it. I want to go back into your earlier lives. I want to talk about the music of today. You answered that question. Again, there's a lot of great music out there. You have to dig a little bit deeper for it. But it's there. There's a lot of great writers out there. So when we come back, think about what we want to talk about on segment number 3. Guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Music. What's the name of the company? Intertalk Radio, your connection to all things music. I'm having a great time. My mind's going 1,000 miles an hour. Guys, don't go anywhere. It's worth you holding out. We'll be right back after these short words. Hello.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Al Di Meola, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Music History 101, guys. Hey, welcome back to segment number 3. I'm Jackie Bertoni. This is Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, your connection to all things music. Guys, before we go on, when you can't listen to us or see us live, we'll always archive our shows, but when you can't take Jackie's Groove or the plethora of other shows that you're seeing in the back on this monitor with you, go on to Google and go on to iTunes and download our easy-to-use and easy-to-navigate application. 2 words, Intertalk is the first one, radio is the second. Take us on the go with you when you can't listen to us live. So that's the business part of it. But what we are doing now, we're talking live, and this is Daniel Del Fiorentino, right to my left. You're right. And we're talking about just the genesis of music and so on. Let's talk about how you chose and why you chose that song. We just started the segment number 3.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked.
Please.
I'm a sax player, played sax since my grandfather gave me one when I was 13 years old. And took lessons at Gelb Music in Redwood City, California.
Northern California.
Yeah, that's right. And always was listening for the sax solos, you know, and there was a couple of people that I always heard over and over again. And as you well know, you can create an understanding of a person's style, even if they're just a studio musician and told what to do.
Sure.
You can still differentiate between this one and that one. And that's exactly what I did with a guy named Jim Horn. And I would hear him and just say, oh, there's my man. And he did records with everybody. He was in the Wrecking Crew in Los Angeles, and he did, I think, 7 albums with John Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Did those wildlife concerts with John Denver, did all kinds of great stuff. So anyway, fast forward to June of 2017, just a couple of months ago. I was with my staff, Elizabeth Dale and Mike Mullins. A big shout out to those guys. They are my partners in crime with our podcast.
Perfect.
We were at the Musicians Hall of Fame in Nashville, which is a fantastic place if you ever get a chance to go. It doesn't look like much on the outside, but when you get in, it's remarkable. And what they try to do is get the actual instruments that these guys played. So they focus on like the Wrecking Crew or the Motown sound with the Funk Brothers or whatever it might be. They have these different segments, and you can go in and see these instruments. So I see Jim Horn's horn, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys.
Isn't
and I'm
that
telling these guys, and I'm taking a picture, and I'm like, I don't know why, but I've got to interview him. I can't believe that I still haven't interviewed this guy. So I took a picture of the horns, and the guy who was giving us the tour said, oh, before we leave this area, I want you to meet, and in walks Jim Horn. He goes, I want you to meet Jim Horn. And I was like, well, you could ask my...
How'd you keep it together? Because
I was just like giddy. It was so funny. Like I was just talking about this.
Because my crew here knows that I am starstruck.
Yeah.
Even though I am the yo cat in the industry, I still will kick my wife under the table. Like, you know, in this, you talk about being a sax player. You know, interviewed Richie Cannata.
Oh, yeah.
For Billy Joel's band.
Right.
You know, when I sat there with his sax, he goes, Jackie, you understand that this sax is the same sax that's played on every one of Billy's hits. And a story, if I can share with you, I think I shared it with you on our interview, about when I had the pleasure and still have the pleasure of working with Brian Wilson.
Right.
You're talking about a gentleman who's got angst, a person whose his life is in his music and his words. But when there was that Steinway piano sitting in the back of Ocean Wave when I went to do his album called Imagination, and I'm looking down the hallways, and even though it was early in the morning, there was music coming through the walls. Even though there was pictures of Bennett and Sinatra and so on, you can feel the music coming through the walls.
Absolutely.
I went into the White Room, which is white floor, ceiling, and walls, is where they conduct all the orchestras. Everything that you've heard from Bennett, Sinatra, and so on and so forth. So here's this piano sitting in the back. Piece of shit, just dilapidated, just like horrible. Fast forward a half hour later, Brian Wilson walks in. Now, even though I'm very in tune, I've done so much work with the Beach Boys, I never had a chance to sit down with Brian. And it was Brian's request to sit in on the studio, on my session. Am I going to say no? No. I had no choice. But he walks in and he gives me a big hug. I take the opportunity for him to stand around all my equipment from LP, to give thumbs up and pointing to it. And then he says, now come with me. So we went right across the hallway, that piano that looked like crap. He sits down behind it, Dan, and he starts playing the intro to California Girls. And I said, wow, that sounds exactly like the album. He goes, it should be. It's the same piano. And all of a sudden, that piano just started to sparkle.
Yeah.
And the owner of Ocean Way would never sell it, because when Brian went into his period where he was sequestered in his home for those 4 years, that was the piano that was brought into his living room where they put sand, a sand pit. So he felt like he was rubbing his toes through the sand so he can write the beautiful beach music. So these are the things that we learned, the idiosyncrasies, the things that are behind the velvet rope backstage situations. You know, you laughed a little while ago because the intro, the radio drop was done by my good friend of mine, Todd Zuckerman, the drummer from the iconic band Styx. It's amazing because their new album out right now is called The Mission. First album in 14 years. It was released a couple months ago. We were proud to be part of the promotion on this. Here's the cool thing. They went back to Blackbird Recording in Nashville. They have over $1 million just in microphones, Dan. And what they did is they recorded the album all analog, which they actually went in, Chuck Panazzo, Ricky Phillips, the two bass players, Todd, they brought their old P basses out of storage, left the old strings on them to get that sound of the original tunes.
Right.
That they did that. So they everything old is old again. They brought that back. So when I say to you, being a sax man and so on and understanding it, I don't know the last time you were in the studio. Hopefully you're still gainfully employed on playing sax. But, you know, it's changed drastically. Has NAMM, I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly, has NAMM embraced the new technical sounds?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you know, NAMM is all about...
Explain to them.
Well, the trade show is our opportunity as an industry, the music products industry, to showcase the latest and greatest. So, you know, I remember once somebody was asking me to do a research project on all the instruments that were introduced at the NAMM show, and I said, you know, it's easier to say the piano is one of the only ones that wasn't. You know, I mean, that is the place where the DX7 was introduced. That's where, you know, Les Paul was introduced. I mean, it and everything in between. And so it is that opportunity for these manufacturers to get together and say, this is what we've been working on. What do you guys think? We're going to roll this out. And we get some artists to go in and play some of those things. Herbie playing the DX7 is a favorite memory that many people have, going back to 1984. When that first came out, the Fairlight was introduced at the NAMM show. I mean, all of that technology has been embraced by NAMM since the very beginning, because we're looking for opportunities for musicians to be inspired, right? To have their soul being released through music, and hopefully inspiring other people to pick up an instrument. A young kid who plays, you know, because they heard their hero. And those are the kind of things that we want to inspire. And I think those technologies that you're talking about are amazing. And, you know, one of the things that I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Please.
We've got to play a little bit of Rocket in one of these segments. Herbie Hancock's big hit from 1984.
Nice. The
video
that alone.
Right? And do you remember when he played it live at the Grammys that year? Okay, so that's the first time many people, including me, sitting at home, saw a turntablist, and that was Grand Mixer DXT, right?
Absolutely.
And he was doing that, And I thought, oh my gosh, that is really wild. I'm loving that.
Twos.
Do you remember
Exactly.
that?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So that inspired the whole new thing that as part of the oral history program, I am very proud to say that we painstakingly went through a lot of those old original DJs, going way back, like Cool Red Alert.
Of course.
Spinderella. Those folks who really invented
Kid
that,
Capri. I mean,
right?
yeah.
Those guys invented that whole thing, and they're still around, so we're able to do that. DXT gave a great interview about how Rocket came off the ground. And now here's something interesting. When I approached some of these companies that provide these DJ equipment, like Gemini and American DJ and people like that, I called 4 of them and said, I want to start documenting this history. And would you believe this? They're all competitors, so they weren't talking to each other. They all said the exact same thing to me, all 4 of them, which is, that's great, we'd be honored, but you've got to start where the source, and that is those guys in the Bronx. We would be nothing if it wasn't for those guys, those kids, basically taking their parents' equipment, right? Those old pieces of record players and speakers that people threw out and turn them into a musical instrument so they could entertain their friends in the parks there in the Bronx. And that's where that started. So these guys who are now making professional equipment based on that are saying, honor them first and then come back to us.
And that's the success of one of my companies. I've been endorsed by LP, LP Music, which now is part of the proud family of DW Drums. I've been with them going on 28 years. They celebrated 50 years 2 years ago. And the success of these companies come from the fact that they're not a standalone. They're not the corporations. They are to a certain level, but they do pry on the knowledge of their players. What would you like to see? What sound effect? What can we do to make things easier now that we're older? Like LP now has introduced the top-mounted lug nuts of the tuners and so on. Instead of reaching down here and wrenching, we can do it up here now. It's done that because we're all saying, we're really getting tired of doing this shit. Let's do this shit up here now, right?
Right.
And I always say this, and I've said this over and over again about to the people out there, for children, our generations coming up in music. I always tell parents that never force an instrument down a child's throat. Take them to a music store. Let them look at the instruments, let the instruments call them. And then a friend of mine said, Al DiMiola, and he said, the better thing than that is to take your children to concerts. Let them taste real music. And it's so cool, Dan, because when we go to these shows, Styx, Chicago, and they're still in big, huge venues, arenas, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and now we're seeing 3 generations.
Absolutely.
Us, our children, and our children's children. And that right there alone is just, it's heartwarming. Music is life. And I love that. But I want to ask you a very unfair question. Out of all the NAMMs, let me ask you this question first. Do you enjoy NAMM? Let me finish. Are you actually getting a chance to smell NAMM, savor NAMM? Or are you running around like the quintessential chicken with the head cut off? Do you have time to actually look around and go, yeah, this shit is working? When you look at the top sign, I can't wait every year to pull into the convention center to see that emblazoned. I take a photograph of that in my phone, in my photo gallery. I have every year of NAMM up there. So do you get a chance to enjoy NAMM?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I mean, to me, it's like old home week, and people like my staff, whenever we walk out the show floor, they always tease me that, it takes an hour and a half to walk 5 feet.
Hey, how are you?
And, right? It's all your buddies, and there's lots of hugs, and it's our people, right? It's where I feel most comfortable. These are the people that I love. These are the people I want to document. I want to thank them and respect them for what they've done to music and for musicians by documenting their stories. And so getting to see them every single year is an absolute joy for me. I do sequester myself away at the Hilton because we have a great room to do interviews, and that's the chance to do it.
Of course.
So I'm not on the show floor just hanging out, but I do give myself a break to go and check out the booths, say hi to friends, and so on. But really, that is such a golden opportunity for me to archive. I think last year we did 72 full-hour interviews during the NAMM show, which is like, I don't think I can break that record, and I'm not sure I really want to.
Try,
but
exactly.
The point is that that's the opportunity. So I absolutely love the NAMM show.
Okay, so here's a two-part question. Let me go maybe in a three-part. How long have you been with NAMM?
First show was 1998.
Okay, so with that question, can you put your thinking cap on for a second. Is there a favorite NAMM? I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to be sarcastic. I'm going to be right there. I hated NAMM when they were in LA. I mean, when they were redoing the Anaheim Convention Center and they moved all of us out. Even the people that lived in LA and the Valley hated the LA Convention Center. It just was different. It didn't seem the same. That's my little grunt right there. So with that said, can you think, is there a favorite NAMM that comes to mind, something that was just, that you can share with the listening audience that really makes you laugh to this day?
Well, speaking of LA, that's when I got to meet, the museum had just opened up, and the Museum of Making Music in Carlsbad. I was the first curator and helped them with their booth at the LA Convention Center to gain awareness throughout the industry. Hey guys, we're looking for stuff, vintage stuff. If you got, a prototype or something really cool, let us know. And we did a tribute to MIDI technology, which was introduced at the NAMM show in 1984, as you will know, in Chicago. And so we were sort of celebrating that, and we had some of those those innovators there in our booth throughout. Mr. Kakahashi from Roland, Dave Smith from Sequential, Tom Oberheim, and Don Buchla, who has become a hero of mine. He's a guy who was at Berkeley working on MIDI technology and synthesizers about the same time Bob Moog was, way back in the 50s. And here I got to meet him, and I'll never forget that. That was just a great opportunity. So, but he was playing cat and mouse with me for years. He would not do an interview, and I kept begging him and asking him, oh, I got a cold, I'm not feeling well. It was always something every year. So finally one year I thought, I'm gonna just pull out all the stops. I put in a full-page ad in the NAMM directory. This is back when we had the printed directories. And it said, wanted dead or alive. I want an interview with Don Buchla. Whoever can bring him to the interview room, I'm going to give you a steak dinner. So all throughout the show, people kept showing up at his booth saying, I want the steak. Come on, let me take you over. And finally, at the end, he said, I went to his booth, and he says, I'm tired of people asking me about this. I'll go and do it. And I said, okay, great. So at the end, I said, who gets the steak dinner? He goes, I'll take you out. And I thought, oh, look at what happened there. I got a little friendship that came from this.
Was it a good interview?
It was cat and mouse. He's an engineer, and he didn't want to say too many things. But he talked about knowing Leo Theremin. He talked about the early days. It was great. It was fascinating. And, we've lost him now. So that is never going to be duplicated. We're never going to get that story again. But the NAMM Archives has it, and I'm very, very proud of that.
And it's so cool that you mentioned the fact that we are losing so many people. I had the honor of earlier of my program to interview Tito Puente. We're there already. Wow, Jesus. Guys, segment number 3. Daniel, 2 hours is not enough. It's definitely not going to be enough. Guys, coming out of segment number 3 into segment number 4, I'm Jackie Bertoni. Jackie's Groove Intertalk Radio Network, Dan Fiorentino. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these words.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Al Di Meola, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Wow. You know, due to the wonderful thing called the Facebook police, we can only play so much of the songs itself. I want to get back to that, guys. Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, Intertalk Radio Network, your connection to all things music. Guys, a little bit of business, Daniel, if I may. We got to keep these lights on. I want to say hi to our sponsors. First and foremost, Calvin Lee and the Motley Crew over at Pitbull Audio. You can reach them at pitbullaudio.com, where they just want you to play it loud. People I'm biased to. Sabian Cymbals, my cymbal choice for the last 24 years, Sabian.com. Vater Percussion, my drumstick company for the past 25 years, Vater.com, Vater.com. Drum Workshop, we love the guys over at Drum Workshop, Don Lombardi, Chris Lombardi, and John Good. Thank you guys for being one of the newer sponsors, and of course, as I said before, LP Music, going on 28 years. You can reach them at lpmusic.com. Jerry Zacharias, Terry Talapia, all the people in Derek Zimmerman. Guys, thank you for your belief. And also someone I'm sure you know, called Studio Instrument Rentals, SIR-USA.com. Everything that you can possibly want, but we're afraid to ask for in the way of backline and so on. You guys, and also Bling Group. If you guys have the money, you have the need, and want to add a little extra bling into your life, blinggroup.com, your best place for custom diamond watches and custom diamond jewelry. So with that said, Daniel, welcome back.
Thank you.
You know, I want to go to this, and we also want to talk about NAMM, NAMM.org. You want to go there, you want to get involved. I asked you a question, I'm going to bounce back and forth. Can the general public actually gain entrance into the Carlsbad headquarters to see the museum?
Yes, it's open to the public every day except Monday.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a wonderful museum. It's a nonprofit organization, so they have fundraisers and special gala events. They had Graham Nash there last year raising money and awareness. They have a wonderful Music Ventures program. It's curriculum-based tours for kids, and these kids come in busloads at a time. Sometimes that's the first museum they've ever been to. Sometimes it's the first time they picked up a musical instrument to play.
Are their eyes this big?
It's fantastic. It's just absolutely glorious. I mean, that's the mission, right? We want to get more music makers, and so busloads at a time come to this museum, and sometimes they come home with a little shaker that they made or something, an experience that they probably won't forget. And the cards and letters and thank yous that we get are just a testimony to the impact that has.
And that is so cool because every year, I haven't done it in years, but I used to do a thing in Maui with Henry Capono and Michael McDonald, a thing called Children, Keikis of the Rainforest, the Rainbow Within You, Keikis being the Hawaiian word for children. And we used to get these big POG tubes, the POG with these little collectibles I used to have, and I would have vats of rice, vats of popcorn uncooked, and I would teach the kids how to make 8-inch, 6-inch, 4-inch shakers. They would make the shakers, put the ends of them on. They would go to another booth. They would paint them, let the sun dry them out, and at the end of the day, at about 5 o'clock on a grassy knoll would be Henry Capono, Michael McDonald, and these kids with their shakers.
Cool.
And you talk about just emotional, watching these babies' faces. They don't know who Henry is. They don't know who Michael was. They just knew that they were actually getting that sound out. And that alone is worth its weight in gold. You know, we talked about earlier about your cat and mouse with the last interview, and how it went was cat and mouse. I get kind of, my ego gets hurt a little bit. I've been blessed to work with the greatest drummers in the industry. You know, again, Jeff Porcaro, the late great, Vinny Colaiuta, of course, David Garibaldi, Liberty DeVito, the list goes down the line. But I have been fighting like hell to get Steve Gadd to come on. I mean, Alex Acuna, one of the greatest interviews I've had in the last 3 months. Alex said, I'll work on him, Jackie. So I get an email from Carol, Steve's wife, and she said, we're very well aware, everybody's called him. Lukather, everybody said, you got to get on Jackie's show. She said, it's nothing against you. Steve doesn't like to do interviews. It's not because his shit doesn't stink. He just is not comfortable in his own shoes. But I'm going to change that. She goes, if anybody can change it, you can change that. I got a call years ago from a gentleman by the name of Hal Blaine. You talk about the Wrecking Crew kids. These are the quintessential studio musicians. Hal Blaine, Carol Kay, one of the greatest female bass players that was responsible for The Beat Goes On with Sonny and Cher. If it wasn't
Impossible.
Mission, exactly. Yeah. And so when Hal got on the phone, I was at Ocean Way. I was getting ready to go on my first day of recording with Brian. Al said, they said, Jackie, Hal Blaine's on the phone. I thought somebody was fucking with me. Did I say with me? And so I get on the phone, and he goes, Jackie, hey, Jackie, it's Al Blaine. And I'm like, okay, this is Al Blaine. Nobody can do an impression like that. He goes, I want to humbly hand off the baton and welcome you to the new Wrecking Crew. And that was myself, that's Michael Rhodes on bass, all the Nashville guys, Eddie Bears, Brent Mason, and so on. But I said, Mr. Blaine, he goes, if you called me Mr. Blaine one time, I'm going to hang the phone up. I said, there will never be another Wrecking Crew. New, past, there'll never be. And I said, so I will not take that baton. But he spent 10 minutes on the phone with me to tell me not what Brian likes, what to look out for. That alone, you couldn't pay that kind of money for. So with that cat and mouse game, if you had a bucket list, we all have one. Let's talk about artists that are no longer with us. Who would you want to have interviewed and why?
Who is gone?
It's gone.
Oh, well, gosh, let's start with Mozart.
Okay.
Right? I mean, if I can choose.
Sure.
Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn, Elvis, Ella Fitzgerald,
Choose one.
Oh, I can't.
Okay.
Any of those.
Today living.
Yeah. Well, we lost one that was really on my bucket list. I really did want to interview Fats Domino.
Why?
My kids teased me about that because he was the number one choice. If they said, okay, who do you want to interview? I always said Fats Domino. And then Fats developed Alzheimer's, and that became impossible for me. We just lost him today. And the why is, that sparkle, right? Anytime you see any footage of him, he's playing the piano and he's looking right at the audience. He's happier than you are, right? And he had such a kid-like feeling towards music. He enjoyed it, and as a result, we enjoyed it, right? Very uplifting. Even Blue Monday and some sadder songs that he did were still uplifting and fun because of the way he put his personality into it. And I think that he did get credit, luckily for us. He was in the first group of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986, along with Elvis and those guys, because he was a pioneer of rock and roll without a doubt. And I'm glad that he got the props that he did. He got a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. So he did get the props, but I always wanted to know more. He didn't give a lot of interviews. He was very humble. But I think that he had such an enthusiasm towards music.
Infectious.
And it was very infectious. And I just wanted to glean a little bit more of that, for selfish purposes. But I have been able to, for so many people, like Hal Blaine you brought up. There's another guy who you just sit there and you just learn. You just learn. He says something, it's like, oh my gosh, that's what that was like. Another guy from the Wrecking Crew that I was so blessed to know was Earl Palmer, who was a great jazz drummer who played on more rock and roll records than probably just about anybody else next to Hal. I mean, unbelievable.
Tedesco.
Yeah,
Right,
Tedesco.
you know,
Never got to meet him, but another, giant in that area for sure.
I was talking to Dan on the break, and I got to tell you, I'm a little bit jealous because I was talking about how I had the opportunity in the beginning stages of Jackie's Groove to interview who's now my personal friend, Patito Puente Jr. I didn't have the opportunity to meet his father, even though he was the abuelo, the grandfather of everything that we've stood for in the way of percussion.
Mm-hmm.
His innovations, his designs that were graciously welcomed by Martin Cohen and the LP family. And so I surprised him on the opening number. We got permission to play an elongated thing of Tito's last concert on Oyo Como Va. People think that's Santana. It's not Santana. And it's not even Tito Puente. There was the writer on that. But the fact is, Tito said to me, and he came on, he goes, I'm not going to be embarrassed to tell you I'm crying right now. And it was, even though I was in concert on the road with Joe Walsh and Henry Capono and Christopher Cross back in 2000 in St. Charles, Illinois, remembering where you were on those most prolific days. I was getting off the tour bus, and Henry Capono from Hawaii had said, hey, Tito Puente died. I couldn't hear him as the exhaust of the bus pulled away, and he finally said, Tito Puente died on the table, complications due to his heart. And it was sad, and so as we fast forward 17 years later, I had the opportunity to, again, interview my good friends, and we're talking about Walfredo Reyes Jr., Stevie Winwood, Santana's drummer, now currently with Chicago on percussion, and also Danny Reyes, his brother, percussionist, with Glenn Frey and Don Henley and Stevie Nicks, Earth, Wind & Fire, and currently with Zach Brown. And they said, can we ask a favor of you? And I said, sure. And they said, would you consider interviewing my father, Wally Sr.? And I said, what's your next stupid question? Because, and then Danny said, because when Dad goes, so goes the stories.
Right.
And so had the greatest interview with him. 2 hours blew by, and we still had 1,000 more questions to go through. So fast forward, Peter Michael Escovedo, Sheila E., and they said to me on an LP gathering last year ago, August 25th, would you consider interviewing Pops, or Pete Escovedo Sr.? Yes. They said the same thing. You were so successful with Wally Sr. that people want to hear about Dad, where we came from. I'm trying my best, because we are losing people. Now, when someone passes away like Chris Cornell and the like at those young ages, it's heart-wrenching. But when these people have lived their lives and full of lives, and they've educated the masses, I really want to go after. I want Hal Blaine, and I will get Hal Blaine. I was just notified by Fiorentino that there's a very good chance of Al Jardine.
Cool.
They all know Jackie because I've recorded on all their albums, but the fact is, they're Jackie Bertoni, yeah. And then also found out from Carney Wilson that her dad is interested.
Cool.
She goes, but you're going to have to go to Dad. Nothing ego-wise. It's just Dad is not going to feel comfortable talking to you for 2 hours on the phone. So these are the things that we at Intertalk Radio are so proud of. Just to brag, I've interviewed 14 members inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to kiss your ass. To be associated with NAMM, something that has been my soundtrack of my life, the first NAMM I ever walked into, you can't do it in 1 day. You can't do it in 4 days. So to me to sit down and have the closest situation, I'm going to interview the CEO of NAMM one day soon. I know we are. He doesn't think he'd be interesting. And just like you thought you wouldn't be interesting. Wrong. So with that said, I thank you from, I get on my knee, but my fractured hip's not going to allow me to do that. So let's get back into the crux of music, okay? What will we see different, that crystal ball in front of you right now, at NAMM 2018? Or is it going to be pretty much verbatim to what it's been?
Well, it's never the same, as you well know.
Thank
It's
you.
never the same. And I can guarantee you're going to see something that you never saw before, and you will be blown away because you didn't even know you could do what you are able to do now. The software, the apps, all that stuff is so much different than it had been 5 months ago. So,
Right.
Of course, for a whole 12 months ago, these guys are in their basements trying to figure out, how could we do that? If I could just do this. I figured it out. And now we got a new product. And so that's what's exciting. The technological advances, of course, change all the time. And as a result, we have more opportunities to make music in a different way. So I think there's always going to be something new and exciting at the NAMM show, and I think that's one of the reasons that people like to come. Another major reason is the same reason that you and I got together there. It's the people, and one of the things about that community is that passion that I'm so proud to document as part of the oral history program, to share as part of our podcast, but then also to remember. And I'll tell you a poignant story. You brought up Tito Puente. I remember the day he passed away as well, having interviewed him. I also remember walking through the show floor at my very first NAMM show, just before we moved to Los Angeles for the renovations in Anaheim. And I'm walking down, this is the day before it's open, so as a staff member I can walk and I'm watching everybody make their booths and setting up and so on. And a gentleman had taped a picture of somebody next to his booth. And I walked over, I don't have great eyesight, and he had written something, so I had to get really, really close to see what did he write, who was this guy. And he came over to me and he put his arm around me and he said, the show's not going to be the same without him, is it? And I didn't know who this guy was, but I learned that it was one of his reps. And that had such an impact on me. I didn't know that rep, but gosh, I wish I did, because he certainly seemed like a great guy, enough that warranted this guy taking the time to put his picture up and to make that comment to me. I will never forget that comment, Jackie. He said, the show won't be the same without him. And I thought about all the friends that we make and the people that we lose. And if he's a rep and you own a store in Des Moines, you're probably not going to get out to his funeral in Arizona, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't want to pay respect. And I thought of the idea of creating this tribute program. And the tribute program, at first I was a little concerned that might be a little maudlin. Here's these conventioners coming and whooping it up and having a great time. Is this going to be appropriate? But it turns out to be very appropriate. And I'm very, very honored that our CEO, Joe Lamont, who you mentioned, had said just a few days ago that among the millions of things that happened at the NAMM show, that he feels most important is the NAMM Tribute. And this is a program that it takes place every Thursday of the show at 5:30 in front of the Grand Plaza stage. We have bagpipes that come out. We have Doyle Dykes usually on guitar playing along. And we roll a program, a video slideshow of the people, the images of those who have passed away in our industry since the last time we got together. And this is something that the Resource Center staff and I do. And oftentimes there would be, everybody gets, we say, the 4 seconds.
Absolutely.
There's a video that plays on for everybody that we've interviewed. And there is to say that we have documented that story. This is to say those are the people whose stories we now have. We're not going to get again, but we have them now. And there are still pictures of those that we didn't get, hoping that it's going to inspire people to say, gosh, we got to get those stories. We've got to get those stories down.
Hold that thought. Let's pick it up on segment number 5. Again, I'm blown away by how fast this is going. Guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, Intertalk Radio Network, your connection to all things music, and NAMM's historian, Mandel Fiorentino. Guys, don't go anywhere. After this short message, right back.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Todd Zuckerman from the rock band Styx, and you're listening to my pal Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove. Groove on, motherfuckers.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
I'm back on. Hey guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. You guys, that song, when that first came out on MTV, remember MTV?
Of course.
When it used to be music television? And I wanted to know what drug that director was on this Herbie Hancock thing on Rocket.
Right, with all the mannequin parts and all that, yeah.
Just, it was everything but the marionette strings and so on and so forth.
That was awesome.
What made you choose that song?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, I got to interview Herbie and also Grand Mixer DXT, who did the DJ work on that. And it was revolutionary, right? And it brought out products that are now available at the NAMM show that allow people to make music in a different way. We didn't think about your dad's record player as being a musical instrument until that whole movement in the
Scratch,
Bronx,
exactly.
right? Grand Wizard Theodore and those guys making the scratch out there in the Bronx, and over the years I've been able to interview a lot of those guys, which I'm very, very blessed. In fact, one of our podcasts for the Music History Project that's on Intertalk Radio is a two-part DJ program for which we talk about some of those guys, and been very blessed to interview them.
Let me ask you this question. Other than myself, who was your favorite interview?
Well, yours was my favorite.
See what I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yours was my favorite.
Here's the $20. Here's the $20.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's 50 actually.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay. Paul will pay that.
I can't. It's like I can't. No.
No. Who's your favorite child?
Right.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. It's exactly. If you had 3,000 children.
Kids, right?
Yeah. But I will say that there were so many favorite moments for me, and it's documenting. My honor is the fact that I get to play a role in documenting some of these histories. And sometimes there's a story, even the most popular person that I interviewed, B.B. King is a good example. I asked him, I said, everybody knows Lucille, but where'd you get your first amp? And he looked at me, and he looked right at the camera and looked at me and said, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. I was like, yeah.
Yes.
But that's it. I get to document something new.
She always says to me, my wife, she just walked in, how's your nose, sweetheart? When I do an interview, and I love that I'll ask a question, and they'll go, wow, good question. Because God knows they've been asked, over and over and over again, the same ones. My thought process is, well, let me step back from last week. I interviewed Ray Parker Jr., and Mr. Ghostbusters, if you will.
Right.
The stories behind Ghostbusters and everything else, and we're very, very proud. We're going to be heavily involved. We were very, very a strong part, and still are, with an award-winning documentary called The Hired Gun with Fran Strine, and which stars Liberty DeVito, Billy Joel, Rudy Sarzo, and the mentions are crazy. Well, there's a new pre-production that's going to be even greater called The Titans of Radio, and that is including Jay Graydon, Steve Lukather, Leland Sklar. And the reason why they're using the word Titans is because there's at least 30 songs that are on the radio that feature those musicians. And it's going to be, and so I'm proud because we're now going to start interviewing all those artists as they come up. The cool thing about talking to Ray Parker Jr., I mean, who can't sing Who You Gonna Call? And I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you this question. I said, when you're walking down the street, you have a good look about yourself, people know who you are. Are you tired of hearing Who You Gonna Call? Or Ghostbusters and so on? And his response was, Jackie, when you're holding the winning lottery ticket, you don't ever want to sit there and shred it. You don't ever, when an artist says, oh, I don't want to play that song anymore, he goes, how could you not want to play a song that afforded you that lifestyle? And he also said, Ray Parker said, I'm more proud of being part of a song that's not number one, but is known as a number one song throughout the world. Still to this day, Halloween, Ghostbusters licensing is still the most powerful, next to Monster Mash, next to Michael Jackson's Thriller. So when I say that, how you and I are involved in this big cauldron, a thing called music, how we keep stirring things up, what is it, in your opinion, that's going to keep NAMM alive for the next 25 years?
Well, it's innovation, I think. There's always a passion that people have to make music, and if we can continue to inspire them with instruments, that's going to really, I think, be the continuation of that. But I think that we also have to take it very seriously that not everybody who wants to make music is able to.
Sure.
And we're talking about kids. We're talking about music education programs are being cut left and right. And yet we still want, as a society, to have a high level of performance in our children. So we need to take very seriously these things that are happening right in front of us and encourage as much as we can those policymakers to take a look at what is most important to us as a culture. And music is got to be on that top 5 list.
And the beautiful part about this also is, too, with all these manufacturers, you don't think, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that the Remos, the Selmers, the Yamahas, that they wouldn't put their best foot forward to donate a lot of instruments into the schools.
Well, they all do. I mean, most of them do,
sure.
I should say. And all of them get that concept. But it's not just that we can rely on the manufacturer to continue to donate, because they had to make a living,
of course,
too.
In a perfect world.
But it's also about opportunities to teach these kids. We need teachers out there teaching these kids how to do it. We need opportunities for kids to pick up an instrument. We need opportunities for kids to hear music. You brought up a very good point that one of the most inspirational things we can do as parents and grandparents is to get those kids in a live music setting. Sit them down at the orchestra, sit them down at a club if they can get in.
Sure.
Get them somewhere where they can hear live music, because that's going to inspire them. That's going to give them inspiration, and that's going to give them knowledge as to where these sounds come from, and that's important.
So they can get it. I use the term also, too. It's like we have a lot of young kids that come into clubs. The restaurants want them out by 10 o'clock because the ABC, alcohol beverage control doesn't allow it. Unless we started pushing a lot of buttons in Temecula Valley, Temecula where I'm from, that we as the musicians are acting as the parents of the younger players, like Hunter Delbridge, one of the greatest young guitarists that's making huge inroads in this industry. I would act as his father or his guardian, and so he would stay with us. That's and cool. And it was very, very good. Could the restaurants have gotten in trouble? Sure, they could have. But you know what? It's a good trouble. And the fact of the matter is, there's so much more that we can do as the elders in the industry to keep this thing moving forward. And please, I implore everybody out there to listen to me. The days of endorsements are no longer those days. Okay, I am going on 28 years with LP. I went to LP with basically a garage full of their instruments. I wasn't looking for a free rig. I was looking for the same respect that I was giving them over the years. also, too, kids that get into their first NAMM show, do not go up to the reps. They will not talk to you. You don't talk to a rep 30 days before the NAMM show and 30 days after the NAMM show. Your calls will go unanswered. The days of big, unless you are with a major tour, they don't happen. It's not that these multi-million-dollar companies can't afford to give away free rig. It's just not out there anymore. That's that whole vibe itself. So don't take advantage. Don't be that one bad apple. There's too many in there. So let's go to NAMM 2018. It's going to be, I'm not going to give you the exact date, but I want to find out from you, because we in the industry call it the NUM show. And no disrespect, but after 4 days or 5 days, you're numb, and God forbid you should get NAMthrax. And that comes from the handshaking. Hi, nice to meet you, squeeze, 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 Perel. And it's like, you can't stay away from that situation.
Those are 106,000 of your best friends sneezing at you.
Absolutely.
So you need to be careful for sure. But I think that what's exciting about that is it's a family reunion, right?
Absolutely.
And there's great inspiration that happens from there. There's a lot of wonderful meetings that happen. And now, thanks to the NAMM board and some people with great vision at the NAMM building, we're expanding the show to incorporate things that on a higher level than we've ever had before. As you may know, we have the Tech Awards there. Now we're having the Parnelli Awards, which recognizes lighting and sound, live music people. Roadies get an award finally. Right? And there's...
that was good that we did that in unison, by the way. Finally.
We should have harmonized, but we'll work on that.
I'll take the lower.
AES is having their white papers there. We're doing a lot more Dante training, and ESTA is going to be there. There's so many more elements to the music education programs, to the educational format that we have, the tech tracks. All of that stuff is expanding. The live music sound, the live sound portion, as our CEO says, our tribe, is expanding, and that is so exciting to us. I mean, we're going to see a lot more things than we've ever seen before, and as a result of that, we're hoping that we continue to grow this industry and that we continue to inspire young people to become music making. And for me, it's more opportunities to get great interviews because everybody's there, so that's our opportunity.
How early are you at NAMM? Meaning, are you starting on that Monday? Is that how soon you're there?
Yeah, there's a couple of programs that are in and around Anaheim before, like your preview days and things like that. Right. So I'm there doing interviews. I'm actually show floor or on show site on Wednesday and do interviews all the way through Sunday. So it's usually a nonstop. I used to tease that. The Japanese friends get up very early, so I do their interviews before the show starts. Right. And the Germans are just getting started at 11 o'clock, so I usually do them later. So it's a whole day of international interviews. But wonderful opportunities. And, that's when I got to meet Ray Parker and did my interview with him, Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Graham Nash, the first time I did an interview with him. So my musical heroes as well as my industry heroes, this Sammy Ash, who's running a chain of stores that his grandfather started. People like that we get to see. I mentioned Bukla, Bob Moog, heroes of innovation that have inspired musical instruments. And then the sales reps, then the guys behind the counter. Those folks are wonderful and inspirational as well. And so we get a great opportunity to see our friends. And for me, I get to document some history.
Are you privy or are you allowed, do we know who the headliners will be out on the grand stage? Do we know as of yet?
No, they don't tell me.
Okay.
I'm too much of a fan.
What good are you doing here then?
I would be backstage right now waiting for them.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at last year, Ronnie Spector.
Yeah.
When she was up there. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
And unfortunately, I was laying in a hospital bed from surgery, but I got great photos of Liberty. And Liberty was like beside himself because he was actually able to play drums with Hal Blaine. Awesome. Yeah, and he goes, Jack, you would have, I mean, I got teased. Florentino would send great photos of me and all the guys. And by the way, I was actually there. I was in the media on Wednesday. Even though I was in a hospital bed, I was on a laptop. So, I was on the stool next to the other three people. So it just wasn't the right, it didn't feel the same situation. My wife, she enjoys NAMM because she calls it, it's old school week. You're getting a chance to hit people that were not being rushed out. We've got some things I'm going to kind of give a little teaser. We're working, as I said earlier to Paul, we are still working on our logistics, but we're still working right now on what is called Drummers Roundtable. And that's when I will be interviewing 10 drummers, hopefully maybe two times a day, hour interviews, maybe more. We'll let it run its riff. But I asked her, will you be in town during NAMM? Thankfully, all of the big guys are working, but they're trying to get them situations around that. So we've got those situations with J.R. Robinson and, again, Vinny Caialuta and all the sort to sit down. But I want to ask you a question. I asked that earlier, and I kind of touched on it. I am starstruck. To this day, I don't care if I'm on stage with the people, I'm starstruck. I'm there for a reason because I'm the ability to play. But when I'm interviewing somebody, I interviewed Lee Loughnane from Chicago 2 weeks ago. I sucked. He had a great time. He even said to me afterwards, Jackie, I had the greatest time. Ray Parker said, thanks for the fun. Let's do it again. But when I'm around somebody like I've got coming up, Kenny G in January. Kenny and I go back to Jeff Lorber days. I don't know how I'm going to be around Kenny. The thing I'm scared to death for, I will give a teaser again. Emilio Castillo, my big brother, the founding member of Tower of Power, celebrating 50 years next year. A new book coming out, a new album coming out. He said to me, I will do the show with you with open arms, a full 2 hours. I said to my wife, I don't know how I'm going to be able to contain myself because to this day, I'm 57 years old. Mimi's 10 years my senior. Emilio's nickname is Mimi. When I'm around him after a show and we're sitting down, and of course he walks right past me, walks over to her and gives her a hug first, as they do with Susan also too. It's they know where their bread's buttered. But the fact is, when I'm around Emilio, and maybe you'll understand this, I'm not a 57-year-old man. I'm a 19-year-old boy. That's when I started with Tower. And that probably will never leave. And Mimi said to me, why is it that every interview you do, you put me on such a high pedestal? I said, Mimi, think about your question. If it wasn't for you, but he said, wait a minute, if it wasn't for you, your ability to play, you would never walked on stage with us in the first place. How does Dan Fiorentino keep everything together when you're talking to a hero?
Well, that's a really good question, too, because it's impossible. And I think that's part of the charm, though, right? I mean, if they tell you, Ray Parker's saying he had a great time, why did he have a great time? Because you were yourself. And if you got a little giddy and a little starstruck, that's part of the fun.
A little?
Well, that's part of the fun for me, too. And I'm not going to be any different. I mean, Smokey, to me, was like, I couldn't barely talk. In fact, I knew the background singer who helped arrange the whole thing, my dear friend Carrie, and I said, I've never asked this to anybody else before, but would you sit next to me? Well, because if I faint or something, you can at least slap me.
She'll tell you when I get called for big shows, like when I record with Michael McDonald, Earth, Wind and Fire, and so on. She drives me, because I'm in the car and I'm freaking out, and she goes, "Would you just mellow out?" I will laugh at her because we had a dinner with Brian Wilson years ago at Morton's in Los Angeles. My wife, who was a gabber, will talk, but she didn't say one word. We're driving home. I said, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "You didn't say one word." She said, "Jackie, we had dinner with Brian fucking Wilson. What do you expect me to say?" And so with that said, what I'm going to say now, are we going into 6?
Yeah.
Or is this, good Lord, I keep looking at Paul. I keep seeing these fingers like, this man is an amazing interview. I love you, brother. And guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Talk Radio Network, your connection on things music. We're right back on the final segment of 2 hours with Dan Fiorentino. Don't go anywhere, guys. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element, affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Michael McDonald, and you're listening to my good buddy Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
I got to tell you guys, I'm fighting back a tear. That was my mom's favorite song. My mom used to sit there. Oh, God. I'm getting a little emotional here, man. So, with that said, guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, your connection to all things music. This man sitting next to me, to my left, he's on camera, I hope. He was fighting getting involved in this because he didn't think he was camera ready. He never is.
Oh, I never
but
am.
that's okay.
Oh, you're gorgeous. Come on.
With that said, guys, I want everybody to welcome back to Jackie's Groove, the final segment of a 2-hour segment with NAMM historian Mr. Dan Del Fiorentino on my left. Another gentleman with a name that I have a hell of a time after all these years, Fiorentino Buenaventura. They're not two wrestlers. I trust you. Trust me when I say that it's a
Fiorentino Buenaventura.
Yeah, it's a mafia crowd here. So I wanted to bring on Fiorentino because if it wasn't for this man and the gentleman behind the board over there, Paul Berzetsky, we wouldn't be here. So I want to just kind of let you do and earn some of your money, please, to be part of this, and I want you to share more.
This is how. Can you pick me up? Are you picking me up, Paul? Yeah, there we go. So anyway, basically, this wasn't planned, folks. It sort of was, but I was trying to get out of this because I'm also doing back production as well.
It's not happening.
But I did represent the.
I know. I'm very impressed. That's
so the first episode of the Music History Project is about Sun Studio. I got a chance to tour it. You gotta check this out because this is amazing. It's amazing podcast, and so I'm giving my props here.
Well, thanks for your help in promoting it. We really appreciate that help.
I'm so tall in this chair right now.
You are tall.
I was trying to avoid this. We didn't even have the mic set up for this. But Jackie, appreciate you always bringing me in.
Absolutely.
And thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you,
for
brother.
This incredible podcast that we are very proud to present at Intertalk Radio and our relationship with NAMM going way back. I want to give a shout out to Claire and Mary and Eric and Bethany, all the folks at the NAMM Foundation, because we also have their podcast as well. And sometimes if I'm not blocking it, you'll see the badge there. So 2 NAMM podcasts, hopefully more to come. I know that we've got, how many interviews you've done?
3,400-ish.
3,400 interviews. So I think we've got a little bit of content to come.
We have something that we can use,
So that's going to be very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
With that said, for us, on our site, entertalkradio.com / the Music Project. Is that correct, Paul? Yes. Okay.
Music History Project.
Music History Project. I had history in my brain, but the Music History Project. So entertalkradio.com / the Music History Project. You should see that also in the post you'll be able to view and listen there. But tell us, how can people find it on
What's on iTunes, right? It's SoundCloud. Yeah, you can get it through the NAMM website as well, and through Intertalk.
Spreaker, YouTube. It's on YouTube. So if you go there, Podbean. So we've probably got about at least 30 or 40 ways to find it. So just go out and find it, folks, because you got to listen to it.
Music History Project podcast. Yep. As long as you got that name, I think you can find it. Yep.
Or type in the NAMM Oral History in Google. Yep. Is there a URL for that specifically?
NAMM.org/library.
Okay, there we go. So you gotta check these out, folks, because I'm just saying I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
I'm very, very happy that we were able to do this, and like I said, I feel crazy holding a lapel mic.
I'm laughing my ass off right now. It's okay, but now do some more business.
Tell us about some of the other projects that you guys are promoting.
Well, it's funny. This whole thing was based on NAMM. As I was mentioned to you before when we got started with this show, that it was just an idea we should connect up with NAMM and do something for the music industry. A radio network. It's never been done before, so we are the leaders. We are also the only one right now, so it's kind of a blessing and also a challenge because we're paving a way for that. So, that was a huge part of why we started this network. Was we felt that the musicians, the hired guns, giving a shout out to Fran and those folks, needed to get some recognition, and then of course the manufacturers, your Fenders, your Epiphone/Gibsons, even our folks over at MXR Beat Buddy, we got a little shout out to them. The retailers, I grew up. I remember Skip from Skip's Music having a small little tiny store, and we were talking about I've known Joe Lamont since I was 14 or 15 years old. So
10 years ago.
Yeah. It's been a crazy time. So, you guys have been talking a lot about what's been going on with NAMM, but, Dan, can you give us, have we touched on this, any insights on what kind of artists that we're going to be expecting, or maybe topics? Because Sun Records, multiple artists, Elvis, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash.
Right.
And then there are some, there are some of the podcasts about single artists. What are some of the topics that we're going to be expecting in the future?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of it is going to be based on what people are asking us. So the emails that are coming through to library@namm.org is helping us kind of guide what people are looking for. We're looking at all kinds of different things that come out on certain days. For example, we have a podcast coming out on December 7th. We thought we're going to dedicate that in memory of Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day and talk about what the music products industry was doing during World War II. We've interviewed a lot of those old guys, and they have some very compelling stories. We're going to do a civil rights podcast for February in Black History Month. We talked about some of those great guys who one, had to go through some of those things. But then what music did for the civil rights movement, talking with people like Pete Seeger and Peter Euro from Peter, Paul and Mary, and those kind of people. What did music do during that time? We're looking at always to take a look at that long list of people, that collection, that depth of content that we have, and massage it into podcasts that are going to be interesting to people. So it's very exciting. We're going to do one on the goddesses of the music industry too. So look out for that one.
Wow. Well, I'm excited. You folks excited? Hopefully you're excited. So, I know that you guys were talking about NAMM. Did you get a chance to mention any names that you might be interviewing, or have you got that set?
Well, for the 2018 show, no, I haven't revealed that yet. Not all of them are set, so I also don't like to jinx myself. Once it's over, then I'll brag. But we talked about some of the people that we've met in past shows, and it's a very exciting opportunity. One thing that we didn't talk too much about that I would love to get a shout out to is that our summer show in Nashville is a fantastic opportunity. It's completely different than the Anaheim show. It's not nearly as crowded.
You can actually talk to people.
But you actually get a conversation. Anaheim is the, hey, great to see you next year. And you can actually get a drink with somebody at Summer NAMM. have a conversation. It's a great opportunity. Also, I think it was misunderstood as being like a guitar show only, and we're far from that now. I mean, of course, guitars are there, but because Nashville has grown up so much, especially around, you were talking about Blackbird Studios, the studio system there has grown completely different, even in the last 5 years, let alone 10 years.
It's thriving.
It's
actually.
thriving. Absolutely. And so we have much more in the way of live sound and recorded sound and studio people there than we've ever had before. So that element of the show is really taking off and very, very exciting.
Yeah. We one of our show hosts, Aaron A. Train Smith.
Yeah, right.
Have you interviewed him?
Not yet.
You got to interview him.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
That would be
at
great.
least for that summer, that would be great because he does a lot of session work over there. And he came. Funny how this little small city of Sacramento. He came out of Sacramento.
Oh, is that right?
With Joe and all those guys.
Did he have a studio up there, or
no? He was playing. He was just playing. He was playing for Romeo Void.
Oh, okay.
Then he was playing for the 77s.
Okay.
They were kind of not up there. Aaron, if you're looking at that, I got 77's album up there. So he started moving into the Christian music world.
Yeah.
And he's got a great story about that. But basically, he would be a great interview because his time with the Temptations recording,
right.
Papa was a Rolling Stone, and his drumsticks being in the museum of the
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right?
Hall of Fame. There we go. So
I remember seeing them there.
Yeah. He's amazing. Longtime friend. Funny
That's cool.
All those years, he's so humble. All those years in Sacramento, I never knew he played for the Temptations.
Wow.
I just knew he played for the 77s, and I was a big fan of the 77s. And
that's cool.
A very open guy, and now he does a show with us. So, I'm excited. I'm excited about everything that we're going to do here.
Well, we sure appreciate your help. Your staff is awesome. We're really glad to be involved with you guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And Jackie, I'm going to pass this back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Fiorentino, you want to get up and stand in front? Why don't you stay with us? Okay, I want to ask a question to you, Dan. Just as it seems like, forget last year I wasn't there, but is it my imagination or is the occupancy at NAMM's, the attendance, growing and growing and growing?
It's growing, yeah, definitely. Well, 106,000, I think, last year. That's a big number. It took me, I think, my fifth or sixth NAMM show before we hit 90,000, and that was a big, big deal when we get 90,000.
Right.
And we never thought we'd ever get to 100,000, and of course now we surpassed that. So there's an awful lot of folks that come. I wish that we could be more accessible to more people, open to the public, but this is a trade, association, and we are there to do business, and we are looking forward to more opportunities to grow the industry and to encourage more music makers and to have those leaders there talking about those important issues and initiatives is very, very critical to growing that. So there's a serious side of it along with the party side that a lot of people like, of course. So that balance is very, very important to us.
And I want to extend an invitation to you and Susan. We do a traditional thing every Saturday night at whoever will have us, but it's always been at the Marriott. We have a great dinner. It just got a chance to hang out about 7 o'clock. We sit down. It's a gustatorial orgasm, for the lack of a better word. Everybody's eating everybody's plate. So if you're available, I'll let you know well ahead of time. But we'd love to have you come join us, and just to sit around without having things going crazy. We talked. Paul, how are we doing on time, Paulie?
About 5 minutes.
Okay, I wanted to say one thing. It's funny how as we're getting older in NAMM, we use this as a barometer. I just remember 20 years ago after the Northridge earthquake. We would say to stuff like, "So how'd you do?" "Oh yeah, we're okay." 10 years ago, "Hey Dan, Mom and Dad still with us?" Right? And now Caprice corrected me by saying we were at dinner a year ago, and I was talking to Skunk Baxter, and we were all talking about growing older and so on. And Caprice stopped me, and she goes, "You realize for the last hour and a half, you guys have been talking about prostate?" And I go, "Jesus Christ, have we got to that age already? We're all talking about that."
No, yeah, that's not me. I'm not there yet.
Oh yeah, you are. Don't give me that bullshit.
No, I'm not there, man.
But all I know,
keep not admitting it anyway.
Denying it. He's there, right? And so it's so that's the beauty part about it. It's good to grow old with somebody, not grow old of somebody,
right? I mean, that's the thing. It's a community, and that's why we're all proud to be a part of that, for sure. And documenting that and keeping that alive is very, very critical. So we will continue to do that.
And not putting anybody on the spot, you, but I really want to interview Joe. I mean, I would just think that, Mr. Lamont, I think he has a lot to say. That's even more insight to what we're not privy to, that he wants to share with it, and that is Joe Lamont, that is the CEO of NAMM. You guys, I'm just so thankful. We are so thankful at our network to be part of the NAMM family. To think that this would ever be a possibility, you have to watch out what you wish for. And it came to, so as long as we can support each other, great things come together with big numbers. And if we can utilize our names, it doesn't necessarily have to be drawn by money, because names and voices can be as powerful, if not powerful, than monetizing situations.
Yep.
And so we'll do whatever we can in Intertalk, Jackie's Groove, to make part of this. We hope that NAMM always considers us family as we consider you guys family. And so basically, guys, if you get a chance, it's still not too late to get your tickets for NAMM. I mean, we're getting close to that cutoff. But the fact is, if you have a chance, don't assume the fact. I appreciate you guys sending me emails, but can I help you with NAMM? No. It doesn't happen anyway. It's like you've got to be associated with somebody in the music trade, a legitimate situation. And again, thank you. Thank you.
Interested. We got the podcast, so let's promote the podcast a little bit, because this guy's been helping us out with that. Really,
I'll share it on my page too, brother.
Fantastic. A shout out to Elizabeth Dale and Mike Mullins, who it was really their idea in the NAMM Resource Center to say, hey, let's put this to a podcast. I didn't know that much about podcasts at the time, even though I'm an old radio guy, so I kind of fit right into it, but love doing it. I think we're doing a good job of representing a large number of elements of the industry, a lot of different tribes, and I want to continue to do that. But we're all
as well.
Open to ideas.
Is the podcast being done out of the headquarters?
Yes.
Okay, very cool. And are we doing once a week, twice a week?
It's every other week.
Okay.
Every other week on Thursday we drop one.
I'd love to come sit in and just check it out.
Come by.
And so on and so forth. So we got 2 minutes out. Okay, so Fiorentino, anything you want to say in closing with Mr. Daniel?
Well, Dan, here you go. What's the meaning of life, man?
You know what?
Figure that out.
You can figure that one out. For me, like I said, I'm very honored that we're working with you guys, and I was very ecstatic. Big shout out to Shalise, if you're watching right now. Thank you very much, Shalise.
And Sam.
Yeah.
Great team over there for sure.
They're amazing, and even on the convention side with Mary and all those folks over there with Lippin Group who get us media coordinated. Thank you guys for all of that stuff. Now, are you guys going to have a room that you're going to be doing these interviews with?
Yeah, we always set up in the Hilton and try to rotate as many people in and out as we possibly can. And we always look forward to it.
Thing with the foundation,
cool.
So
right.
Maybe we'll be next door and maybe we'll kind of jump in on
an adjoining room.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
So, that's pretty cool.
I want to thank you guys both for having me. I want to also say thank you for letting us dedicate this episode to Fats Domino, one of my heroes of all heroes. So really appreciate that. And if you ever need anything from me, let me know.
Winning lottery numbers would be
good. That's coming to you.
I want to grab this real quick. You guys, again, too, please, NAMM, NAMM.org /library to follow up on everything itself, or just NAMM.org. JackieBertoni.com, JackiesGroove.com, InterTalkRadio.com. Guys, thank you so much for all your support worldwide. We couldn't do it without you, and we say that from the bottom of our heart. So,
and I know you mentioned the app on.
Oh yeah, I did. Again,
but we have the podcast on the app already as well.
Yes,
awesome.
So definitely go to that.
All that's there, and if you've got video and stuff like that, we'll be putting that up as well, folks. So, make sure you tune into that and support music. That's probably the biggest thing. Support music. Yes.
There's the music. There's the music, guys. Support local music. Don't steal music. So with that said, guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, your connection to all things music. Dan Del Fiorentino, thank you so much, brother. We love you. Susan, thanks for putting up with our bullshit today, baby girl. Guys, thank you so much. Peace through music.
Hi, Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know